My name is Riley Bennett. I am 26 years old, and this is my true story. This really happened to me, and it completely changed my life. I once trusted someone deeply, but what they did to me was so shocking, so terrifying that I'm still haunted by it. Today, I want you to know how betrayal can come from the people you love the most. What started as something small soon turned into a nightmare I never imagined. If you really want to know how it all happened, then stay with me till the very end, because my story will leave you speechless. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And remember, this story is written and edited by Dark Lifeside Diaries. I never thought stepping into a new chapter of my life would throw me back into the shadows of my past, but that's exactly what happened when I accepted a teaching assistant position at a prestigious high school in my city at 26. I was finally beginning to feel like I was on the right path. My passion for education was stronger than ever, and I wanted to inspire young students the way some of my own teachers had inspired me, but not every teacher I'd had in the past was someone I admired. There was one in particular who had scarred me deeply during my teenage years, someone whose words and actions had haunted me long after I graduated. His name was Mr. Callahan, my former English teacher, and while most people thought of him as strict but brilliant, I knew the darker side of his personality. He wasn't just controlling. He was manipulative, cruel, and for reasons I never fully understood, he seemed to take a special interest in tormenting me back in high school. He humiliated me in front of my classmates, sabotaged my grades, and whispered things in passing that made my skin crawl. I thought I'd escaped him after graduation, but life has a strange way of circling back. Because when I walked into the staff orientation on my first day at the new school, I froze. Sitting across the room, dressed in the same sharp suit and wearing the same cold smile, was Mr. Callahan. My stomach dropped, my hands trembled as I clutched the folder of lesson plans to my chest. What were the odds? I hadn't seen him in years, but here he was older but still carrying that same intimidating presence. I tried to convince myself I could handle it. After all, I was no longer the shy teenage girl he once belittled. I was an adult now. But from the moment our eyes locked, I knew he remembered me. His lips curled into that same smirk, like he'd been waiting for this reunion, and I swear I felt the room grow colder. At first, I told myself to ignore it. I stayed professional, greeted the other staff members, and tried to focus on the excitement of my new role. But Mr. Callahan didn't make it easy. He found subtle ways to corner me, whispering, "Never thought I'd see you here, Riley," in that low voice that made my skin crawl. He commented on my every move, how I dressed, how I spoke to students, how I prepared lesson plans, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't shake the feeling that he was plotting something. The real nightmare began a few weeks into the semester. Papers started going missing from my desk. Emails I swore I hadn't written appeared in my sent folder, messages laced with unprofessional remarks that I knew could jeopardize my job. Students began whispering about me, saying they'd overheard Mr. Callahan, implying I was unstable, unreliable, maybe even dangerous. It was like he was rewriting the same narrative he once used against me in high school, only this time the stakes were higher. At night, I'd hear noises outside my apartment, footsteps that stopped just beyond my door, the sound of someone scratching at my window. I told myself it was paranoia, that I was just overreacting to the stress of my new position. But one evening when I came home, I found a piece of chalk on my kitchen counter, the exact same kind Mr. Callahan always used to keep in his classroom pocket. My blood ran cold. I tried telling the school administration about my concerns, but they looked at me like I was overreacting. "Mr. Callahan has been here for decades," the principal said with a tight smile. "He's respected, beloved. Maybe you just need to adjust." Adjust? How could I adjust to being gaslit, harassed, and stalked by a man who clearly hadn't forgotten the hold he once had over me? I felt trapped. Every day at work was a battle to keep my composure, and every night at home was a test of my sanity. The turning point came one late afternoon when I stayed behind to grade essays. The building was quiet, the hallways echoing with the faint hum of the janitor's vacuum on the other side of the school. I was focused on my work when I heard the classroom door click shut behind me. Slowly, I turned, and there he was, Mr. Callahan, standing in the doorway, blocking my only exit, his eyes gleaming with something sinister. "You can't run from me this time, Riley," he said softly, stepping closer. "You owe me." I froze, my heart hammering against my ribs, my throat dry. The way he said it, "You owe me," sent a wave of terror through my body. Owe him what? What did he mean? Before I could gather the courage to respond, he leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper that made my skin crawl. "I kept your secret once. Don't make me regret it." My mind reeled. What secret was he talking about? What game was he playing? Panic surged through me, but before I could demand answers, the janitor's vacuum suddenly cut off in the hallway. Mr. Callahan, stiffened, gave me one last cold smile and slipped out the door as quietly as he had entered. I was left shaking, clutching the desk for support, realizing that whatever nightmare I thought I had survived years ago was only just beginning. That night, after Mr. Callahan cornered me in the classroom, I couldn't sleep. My thoughts twisted endlessly, trying to understand what he meant by, "I kept your secret once." What secret? I had no secrets, at least none I remembered, but the way he said it, the cold certainty in his eyes, made me feel as if there was something buried in my past that I'd either forgotten or had been too scared to face. My nightmares returned, with full force, pulling me back into memories of high school, those humiliating moments when Mr. Callahan had singled me out, the times he called me lazy or stupid in front of the entire class, the way his hand would linger too long on my shoulder when he leaned over my desk, making my skin crawl. I had buried those moments for years, but now he was back, dragging them out like rotten corpses from the grave. The next morning at school, I tried to act normal, but my body betrayed me. My hands trembled when I handed back essays, my voice cracked when I spoke in class, and every time I caught Mr. Callahan watching me from across the hall with that smug grin, I felt like I was drowning. It wasn't long before students began to notice. "Miss Bennett, are you okay?" one of them asked timidly, and I realized how fragile my mask of composure had become. Things escalated quickly. One Friday afternoon, I received a phone call from the principal's office. I was accused of sending inappropriate emails to a male student. My chest tightened as I listened. These were the exact kinds of lies Mr. Callahan was planting, poisoning the school against me. I insisted I hadn't written those emails, begged them to check the timestamps, the IP addresses, anything that could prove they were forged, but the administration only gave me vague assurances. "We'll look into it," they said, but I could tell by their tone that suspicion had already taken root. That weekend, I barely left my apartment. Too paranoid to face the world, I double-locked my door, closed my curtains, and tried to focus on lesson planning, but my laptop pinged with an email that made me freeze. The subject line read, "Do you remember?" The sender, an anonymous account. My fingers trembled as I clicked it open. Inside was a single sentence. "The night of the fire, your fault, not mine." My stomach dropped. My breath came in shallow gasps as fragments of memory hit me like shards of glass. A fire my sophomore year of high school, a classroom incident that had been hushed up, swept under the rug. I remembered smoke sirens, panic. I remembered standing outside trembling in the night air while the school burned. The official story had been that faulty wiring caused it, but this email, this accusation, was telling me it was something else entirely. I didn't want to believe it, but my brain wouldn't stop spinning. What did Mr. Callahan mean when he said he kept my secret? Was he the one behind this fire? Or worse, was I somehow involved? The thought made me sick. I needed answers, and I needed them fast. That Monday, I tried to dig through old yearbooks, school board reports, anything that might mention the fire, but every document seemed to avoid the details, like the event had been deliberately erased. And then, as if sensing my desperation, Mr. Callahan began dropping hints. He'd whisper things in passing. "Careful, Riley, some things are better left buried," or "Funny how people forget tragedies, isn't it?" Each time his voice carried that venomous edge, and each time I felt like I was one step closer to unraveling. I decided to confront him directly. One afternoon, I followed him into the teacher's lounge, determined to get the truth. But when I asked about the fire, he only laughed, a cruel echoing sound that made my skin crawl. "You really don't remember, do you?" he said. "That's even better." He leaned closer, his breath hot against my ear. "But don't worry, I'll make sure everyone else remembers." That night, I found a box outside my apartment door. My heart raced as I carried it inside, every nerve screaming not to open it. But I had to know. Inside, I found old photographs from high school, pictures of me at my locker walking with friends, sitting in class, pictures I never knew had been taken, and at the bottom of the box was a charred piece of notebook paper, edges blackened, faint writing still visible. "Don't tell anyone, you'll regret it." My hand shook so violently I dropped the paper. Tears blurred my vision as I realized he'd been collecting evidence against me for years, holding it over my head like a weapon. I felt trapped in a nightmare I couldn't escape, but then something inside me shifted. For years I had been the victim, shy, quiet, terrified of standing up to him, but now I was an adult. I wasn't going to let him destroy me again. I wiped my tears, straightened my shoulders, and made myself a promise. If Mr. Callahan wanted a war, I was going to give him one. The first step was to stop letting him control the narrative. I started documenting everything, every strange email, every comment he made, every suspicious incident. I bought a small voice recorder and kept it in my bag at all times at first. I thought I was just protecting myself, gathering evidence to present to the administration. But the more I recorded, the more I realized I was building something darker. I wasn't just protecting myself, I was plotting his downfall. One evening after everyone had left the school, I snuck into Mr. Callahan's classroom. My hands trembled as I rifled through his desk drawers, searching for anything incriminating. That's when I found it. A thick folder labeled with my name. Inside were printed copies of the fake emails, photos of me from my teenage years, and worst of all, a handwritten journal detailing his obsession with me. He wrote about how he molded me, how he saved me from the fire, how I owed him my silence. My stomach turned as I read line after line of his twisted thoughts. He'd been stalking me for over a decade. I slipped the folder into my bag and fled, my heart pounding with adrenaline. But as I rounded the corner of the empty hallway, I froze. Mr. Callahan was standing there, his face shadowed, his eyes gleaming with fury. Looking for something, Riley? He asked, his voice low and dangerous. I clutched the bag to my chest, my mind racing for an excuse. But before I could speak, he lunged forward, grabbing my wrist. His grip was iron, his face inches from mine. You think you can beat me? He hissed. You think anyone will believe you over me? I've been here for 25 years. You're nothing but a scared little girl playing teacher. I struggled against his grip, my pulse thundering in my ears, but then salvation. The janitor's keys jingled at the far end of the hall, and Mr. Callahan released me, stepping back with a cold smile. Careful, Riley, he whispered as he turned away. Secrets have a way of burning people alive. And then he was gone, leaving me trembling in the dark. But as I walked home that night, clutching the folder like a lifeline, a strange calm washed over me. He thought I was still that scared little girl. He thought he still had control, but he was wrong, because now I had proof. Now I had his words in his own handwriting, and I knew exactly how I was going to use them. The revenge I had once been too afraid to even dream of was finally within my grasp. The folder felt like a loaded weapon in my hands, and for days I couldn't stop flipping through it, reading and rereading his obsessive words. Every page revealed just how sick Mr. Callahan really was. He wrote about me like I was his creation, about how the fire bound us together, about how he protected me by keeping my secrets. It was like he was trying to rewrite my entire life, as if I owed him everything. At first, I wanted to run to the principal and shove the evidence in his face, but then I remembered the smirk on Callahan's lips, the way he told me no one would believe me. And maybe he was right. He had been there for decades, building his reputation. Me, I was just the new teacher, the nervous 26-year-old who was already under suspicion. No, if I wanted to destroy him, I couldn't just expose him. I had to make him unravel. I had to become the hunter instead of the prey, so I started small. I returned the folder to his desk exactly as I had found it, careful not to leave a trace that I'd taken it, but I made a copy of every single page, scanned and hidden on a password-protected drive. Then late one night, I printed one page and slipped it into his mailbox at school, a random entry where he wrote about following me home after class in high school. The next morning, I watched from the end of the hallway as he opened his mailbox, his face blanching as he read it. His eyes darted around the hall like a trapped animal searching for whoever had done it. I smiled to myself, keeping my expression calm and neutral. When he glanced at me, for the first time, the balance of power shifted. He was nervous, he was vulnerable, and I wasn't going to stop. Over the next week, I escalated. One day, left a burnt matchstick on his desk. Another day, I slipped a charred piece of notebook paper into his car windshield. Each time I drew him back to the fire, the very thing he wanted me to forget. I wanted him haunted by it the way I was. But what really started to crack him wasn't the reminders of the fire, it was the whispers. I began telling subtle stories to my colleagues in the teacher's lounge, nothing direct, just questions like, have you ever noticed how Mr. Callahan gets a little too close to students? Or isn't it odd how much he inserts himself into everyone's business? I watched doubt flicker in their eyes, watched the seeds of suspicion grow, and all the while, I kept recording him, waiting for him to slip it. Didn't take long. One night, I lingered after school pretending to grade papers when I heard him storm into the hallway outside my classroom. His voice carried through the thin walls, muttering curses under his breath, calling me ungrateful, a liar, a stupid little girl. I slipped my recorder on and stepped out, pretending to be surprised. Is everything okay, Mr. Callahan? I asked, my voice sugary sweet. His eyes burned with rage as he stalked toward me. You think you're clever, don't you? He hissed. You think you can play games with me? I made you. Without me, you'd be nothing. I held my recorder close, hidden in my hand, my heart hammering. He didn't notice. His anger blinded him. You forget who kept your name out of the papers after the fire. You forget who lied for you. You owe me your life, Riley. That was it. That was the crack I needed. His confession, raw and unguarded, captured forever. But just when I thought I was in control, the game changed. The next morning, I found my classroom ransacked, papers, scattered drawers, overturned, my laptop smashed on the floor, and taped to the whiteboard was a single photograph. Sleeping in my bed, my blood ran cold as I stared at it. My apartment had been locked. How had he gotten inside? My knees buckled, and I sank into a chair, clutching the photo with shaking hands. He knew. He knew. I was pushing back, and now he was escalating too. That night I couldn't sleep, every creak of the floorboards, every shadow outside my window made me jump. I clutched a kitchen knife in bed like a child clinging to a stuffed animal. But even in my fear, the fire in my chest grew stronger. If he wanted war, then war was what he would get. I decided it was time to strike harder, using his own obsession against him. I created a fake email account and began sending him cryptic messages. The fire never burned away the truth. You can't silence ghosts. Everyone will know soon. Each message sent him deeper into paranoia. I could see it in the way he carried himself at school, sweating, snapping at colleagues, glaring at students for whispering. The proud, confident Mr. Callahan was crumbling, and I was the one pulling the strings one afternoon. During a staff meeting, he suddenly erupted, slamming his fist on the table and shouting, "This is all lies. None of it is true." The entire room went silent, every eye on him, and there I was sitting across from him, hiding a smile behind my hand. He was unraveling in front of everyone, but my satisfaction was short-lived, because that night when I returned to my apartment, I found my door unlocked. My heart raced as I stepped inside, knife in hand, every muscle tense. The place looked untouched. Until I reached my bedroom. On my pillow lay another photograph, this one of me standing outside the burning high school years ago. My face illuminated by the flames. Scrawled across the bottom in jagged handwriting were the words, "You lit the match." My breath caught in my throat. Was it true? Had I done it? Or was he twisting my memories, rewriting my past to trap me in his narrative? I didn't know anymore. My mind swirled with doubt, fear, and fury. But one thing was clear. This war between us was racing toward a violent end. Either he was going to destroy me, or I was going to destroy him, and I already knew which one of us deserved to burn. The photograph on my pillow haunted me all night. "You lit the match." His handwriting screamed in my mind, worming its way into the cracks of my memory. I tried to recall that night, the fire, the heat, the chaos, but it was like looking through a foggy window. What if he was right? What if I had started it? The doubt gnawed at me, but deep down I knew his game. He wanted me broken, confused, desperate enough to crawl back to him. That wasn't going to happen, no matter what the truth was. He had destroyed lives, twisted reality, and stalked me for years. He wasn't my savior, he was my monster, and monsters only stop when you kill them. Spent the next few days preparing. I played the obedient colleague at school, pretending to avoid him, letting him think he had scared me back into submission. Meanwhile, I spread more whispers, planting seeds that he was losing control. Teachers avoided him in the halls. Parents questioned his behavior with their kids. Students snickered behind his back. The once respected Mr. Callahan was becoming a pariah, a man everyone suspected, but no one defended. He could feel it too, and I knew he'd lash out soon. I just had to be ready. My trap came together faster than I expected, using the recordings I had of his angry outbursts. I stitched together a chilling audio clip where he admitted to following me, lying to protect me, and calling me his possession. Then I leaked it anonymously to the district board and the local PTA group. By the next morning, his world was burning. Parents demanded his suspension. The board launched an emergency investigation. He stormed into school, red-faced, eyes bloodshot, spittle flying from his mouth as he screamed that it was all lies, doctored, fabricated. But no one listened. The whispers had turned into shouts, and still I wasn't done. That night I returned to the school after hours. I knew he'd be there. He always was when his control slipped. I walked the empty halls, the echo of my footsteps mingling with the hum of the fluorescent lights. My heart pounded, but my resolve was solid. When I reached his classroom, the door was ajar. Inside, he sat at his desk, surrounded by papers, his hair wild, his hands shaking. On the board behind him, scrawled in chalk, were the words, "She is mine." My stomach churned, but I forced myself to step inside. Even now, I said softly, "You can't let go, can you?" His head snapped up, his eyes burning with madness. "You think you've won?" He spat. "You're nothing without me. You always were. You think they'll believe you over me. You think they won't see the truth?" He held up another photo, this one of me as a teenager standing outside the fire. He shoved it toward me. You lit the match, Riley. I covered for you. You're a killer and I saved you. For a moment, doubt clawed at my chest again, but then I remembered the recordings, the photographs, the years of stalking. He wasn't protecting me, he was binding me, and I wasn't going to let him anymore. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. No, Mr. Callahan. The only thing you saved was your obsession, and tonight I'm saving myself. His rage exploded. He lunged at me, hands reaching for my throat, his spit hot against my cheek as he screamed, but this time I wasn't the scared girl. I was ready. In one swift motion, I pulled the pepper spray from my pocket and blasted it into his eyes. He screamed, clawing at his face, stumbling back. I grabbed the folder from his desk, the original journal of his sick fantasies, and hurled it into the trash can. My hand shook as I struck a match, the flame dancing in front of me like the fire that had started everything. This time I whispered, "You burn for real." The flames caught fast, eating at the pages, the smoke curling into the air. Callahan staggered forward, but I shoved him back with every ounce of strength in me. He stumbled into the fire, his sleeve catching as he flailed and shrieked. I didn't watch him burn. I turned and ran, the smoke filling the hallway behind me, the alarm screaming. By the time I made it outside, the building was alive with flames, again a mirror of that night. So many years ago, only this time I wasn't the victim. The police called it an accident, faulty wiring, an old building. No one suspected me. Callahan's reputation was already shattered. His screams for help went unheard, and me? I walked away with nothing but a calm smile, and a weight lifted from my shoulders. For the first time since I was 16, I felt free, but sometimes when I close my eyes at night, I swear I can still hear his voice in the crackle of fire. You lit the match, and even though I've convinced myself I did what had to be done, a small part of me wonders, was he right all along? Did I kill him to silence my own guilt? Or did I finally kill the monster who tried to own me? Either way, the fire has cleansed me, and I'll never fear the dark again.